Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is Jill Gonzalez, the spokesman for WalletHub. WalletHub recently published a fascinating analysis of the most and least giving states in the United States, and Jill is here to talk to us about that report. Jill, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Devin. Happy to be here.
We're really glad that you'd take the time. Well, tell us a little bit about the analysis that you guys did to figure out which states are the most and least giving.
Well, as you and I'm sure some of your watchers know, it was the third annual Giving Tuesday last week, so we really wanted to kind of boost everyone's spirits, hopefully motivate people to give, and take a deeper look at where exactly each state falls in terms of giving. So we looked at all 50 states. We examined them across 8 key metrics, ranging from how much people give their money, but also time-wise, and really seeing how each state ranked.
So, which was the most generous state?
The most generous for this year was Utah, coming in first place, and then South Dakota. Idaho and Kansas tied for third, and Nebraska rounded out the top 5.
Interesting. What I find interesting about those states is that, with the exception of Utah and Idaho, they're not really contiguous. So it's not a regional phenomenon. States somehow are developing very unique personalities, aren't they?
Yeah, we did see that. Really not a regional thing. As far as giving and its trends, it has to do a lot with the state's identity itself. So that's what we saw, especially in states like Utah and actually all across the Bible Belt as well.
So tell us about the least giving 5 states. Which were those?
The least giving start out with Arizona, followed by New Jersey, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Nevada, finishing out with the 50 states.
So Nevada is the least giving, is that right?
That is what we saw, and I think there's a couple reasons why. One is that it had the least amount of opportunities to give. So that's the least number of public charities per capita in the state. And that's what we saw, especially for Nevada, a few other states as well. Of course, if there's less opportunity to give, less people are inclined to give. It's kind of an out-of-sight, out-of-mind thing.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, coming back to this idea of regions, that Utah and Nevada are adjacent and are on the exact opposite ends of the giving spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that, again, goes back to each state's kind of identity and really how high they place giving in terms of their priorities and what they really view as being important.
And it suggests, at just a surface level at least, that a state could change that, because it isn't inherent in the region, it isn't inherent in the people, it's a function apparently of other things like policies and initiatives, right?
Exactly, and that is one of the reasons that we put out this report, to really motivate not only people living in the states themselves, but also their policymakers, and really trying to create new programs to give that incentive for residents to give not only money, again, time as well.
Yeah. And you looked at and individually ranked states in terms of their volunteering. And do you have that data in front of you?
Yes, of course. So again, for the highest volunteer rate, it's pretty much going to mimic that top 5 list that we went over earlier. So again, Utah coming in strong at number 1, and then Minnesota, Idaho, Kansas, Iowa, and Nebraska for the top 5.
Yeah, very, very similar list. I think Iowa wasn't on the first list, though, right?
Correct.
So we added Iowa. Interesting overlap there. But the volunteering, the least volunteering part of the list, that was a little different, wasn't it?
It was a little different. So that's Arkansas, Florida, Nevada, again still in there, New York, and Louisiana. And it's important to remember with these volunteer rates This is going to be the number of people within a state directly tied to a charitable organization and registered with that organization.
I see. That's interesting. Interesting. And it's not a huge surprise to me that New York would be on the least volunteering list, just because we have such a perception of New Yorkers as being busy. Of course, the whole state isn't Manhattan. I lived in upstate New York, and it's a very different lifestyle than in New York City. But still, our perception of busy New Yorkers is pretty well ingrained, isn't it? Do you think that's part of what's going on there, that just the sheer busyness that a New York lifestyle imposes on people?
I think so. I mean, again, you brought up that this is a state-level based study, so of course we're not just zoning in on Manhattan. But I think so. I mean, New York as a state saw a pretty steep decrease in its volunteer rates over the last 6 years, so actually from 2006 to 2012. And that, of course, could be due to many reasons. One of course, the economy. Giving, I think, has dropped a few priority spots on a lot of people's lists all over the country, not just in New York. But yeah, that's something that we could definitely take into account, just the hecticness and busy lifestyle of a lot of the people that live there.
Yeah. What other things did you look at besides the dollars giving and the time volunteering?
Well, we also took a look at the percentage of income that was donated. So typically the average household in America donates 1 to 2% of its total income toward charity. But when we really looked at each state, we saw that Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, they all followed Utah in the highest percentage of donated income. So again, that Bible Belt really coming in strong, and obviously putting charity as a priority on the things that they want to give their money toward.
Yeah. You probably didn't get granular enough to look at whether the giving to churches, if you take that out, leaves more generosity to non-church charities or not. But it would be interesting to sort that out. Not that churches aren't legitimate charities, but it's one of the things that is often raised here in Utah. I happen to be a Utahn, of course. It's probably a disclosure I should have made up front, but one of the reasons I was excited to have you on the show. But it would be interesting to see if the folks who are, as you point out, kind of the religious communities, if they are donating past and beyond churches or only to their churches. Have you looked at Have you looked at that question?
We didn't really divide each charity up or see exactly where monies were going.
Right.
We did, include the term public charities. That is an IRS term, and it does include churches, hospitals, qualified medical research organizations affiliated with hospitals, schools, college, universities, and of course churches. So that's not something that we divvied up this year. It would be interesting to see next year exactly kind of where the breakdown falls, especially in Utah, the Bible Belt. Maybe states on the coasts have donated more to the arts. It would be something really interesting to look into.
Now, do you have in front of you, again, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I'm hoping you have some data there that you can look at that we don't have. But did you look at the actual percentage that people were giving in the most and least generous states?
Yes. So in Utah, or are you talking about the percentage of income donated?
Yeah, the percentage of income donated.
Okay, well, in Utah it's going to be up around average 12%.
Okay.
So when a lot of other people in the country are donating that 1 to 2% level, that's a huge increase, and clearly kind of says where Utahns are really prioritizing where to give their money to. I mean, that is a big chunk of change, and not all of it is tax deductible, but some of it is, and that's something that can be taken advantage of and really documented, where in other states people care less about really documenting it and writing it off on their taxes.
Could be, could be. So what is the lowest percentage of income that you saw on in your analysis?
The lowest percentage of donated income came from New Hampshire, who's actually at the 0.6% mark, so less than 1%.
0.6%. That is a quite a spread. I think if I'm doing the math right in my head, Utahns were giving 20 times as much in terms of a percentage of their income as in New Hampshire. That's a crazy comparison. Of course, there are a lot of factors that go into that, aren't there?
Oh, of course. And we were talking about how there wasn't really a trend regionally, but this was one of the exceptions. So we talked about the Bible states earlier really donating a lot of their income. This was the exact opposite, especially in the northeastern states. So the bottom states were Rhode Island, New Jersey, Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire, really donating a lot less percentage-wise of their income than those top 5 states.
Yeah. Very interesting. That was a clear regional difference, wasn't it? That's a fascinating observation that I had not picked out of the data you sent over in advance. Very interesting. Well, Jill, let me just ask you why this matters to you. Why do you care of who gives how much, and why is that relevant to you personally?
Well, I mean, I think that America is so obsessed with being #1 at everything. You know, we want to be #1 in military power and economic prosperity and technology, all of these things, and you don't really hear about being #1 in charity or charitable giving as much. But actually this year, the United States actually tied with Myanmar by the Charities Aid Foundation as being the #1 most benevolent country in the world. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't pay attention to and kind of overlook, but it's something to really brag about, I think, and that's why this study is pretty cool to me, you know, just taking an even deeper look into that. And as a New Jerseyan originally, I'm not too proud of my state, and I think that we can do a lot better in the future.
Well, that is one of the most hopeful things from our conversation, I think, is the potential states have to influence giving in a positive way, to drive more giving. And so I will take that as a really hopeful sign from our conversation. Now, before we go, tell us a little bit about WalletHub and what people can do and learn and find at WalletHub.com.
So WalletHub is a personal finance social network, really safe community to ask any financial questions you might have, you know, instead of plugging it into a search engine and hoping you come up with the right answer, whether it's about mortgage questions, if you're switching credit card companies, want to save money there, get the most out of your rewards, things like that. But we also do develop these data-driven studies to help out consumers, whether they're looking to start a new career somewhere and relocate, or looking to start a new family. We've picked out the best cities to do that, especially for your wallet, of course, and the best states to even have a baby in, or at least see exactly how much it's going to cost you if that's on the horizon for you or anywhere in your near future. So we just are really a site geared toward consumers.
Fantastic. Well, I really thank you, Jill, for taking the time to be with us today. It was just a joy to have you, and we wish you continued prosperity in your work.
Thank you, Devin. I hope I have some more good news for Utah in the future.
Thanks. Now let's do some good.